Now, they say politics is pervasive, everything is politics. But I doubt they thought of ice creams when they said it. In Israel, an ice cream brand is at the center of a political storm, one that has added a new flavor to the Arab-Jew conflict. In Palestine, many hearts are melting. In Israel, there's a bit of a meltdown. Bad puns, I know, but this is an interesting story, so hear me out. You've all heard of Ben & Jerry's, I'm sure. One of the biggest ice cream brands in the world, with a net worth of $500 million and franchisees in 35 countries. It has been doing business in Israel since 1987. It has now decided to get involved in Israel's political affairs. Ben & Jerry's will no longer sell ice cream in Israeli-occupied Palestinian territories, which basically means that the Vermont-based company is going to halt all sales in West Bank settlements and Jewish neighborhoods in East Jerusalem. Why would they do that? Because it feels inconsistent with their values, they say. How exactly? I have a statement from the company, and this is what it says. We believe it is inconsistent with our values for Ben & Jerry's ice cream to be sold in the occupied Palestinian territory. We also hear and recognize the concerns shared with us by our fans and trusted partners. This is the reason they've given. Now, it's a bit odd that the realization has kicked in after 34 years of operating in this region. We'll discuss the reactions in a bit, but first let's understand the motives behind this move. Can it just be a matter of values? Well, some say it isn't. They say the company has bowed to pressure. You see, Ben & Jerry's started off in the American state of Vermont. It is still headquartered there in South Burlington. Both the city and the state have been the site of some fierce anti-Israel movements in recent years. Movements like BDS, that's the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions Movement, BDS, a Palestinian-led group that promotes boycotts, divestments and economic sanctions against Israel. Now, this group has an affiliate body called the Vermonters for Justice in Palestine. It's an advocacy group for Palestinian rights. Since 2012, this affiliated group has been trying to build pressure on the ice cream maker to shut its stores in the West Bank. And since then, listen to this, a total of 232 organizations across the United States and at least 17 countries have signed a letter by this group. What do they want? For Ben & Jerry's to end its commercial ties with Israeli settlements. Well, they have now. The company is boycotting occupied territories, but will continue doing business in the rest of Israel. Well, first of all, this doesn't look like it's about morals. And second of all, will it be allowed to do business in the rest of Israel? For business, you see, you need customers. And Israelis are infuriated. They call the ice cream company's move anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. They also say that the company is trying to impress the woke mob and should be ashamed of itself for this hypocrisy. Listen to this.
It doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense if you're anti-Semitic and you hate Israel. This is perfect. Do it over something more important than ice cream.
Ben & Jerry's. There have been other companies that have done, like they're capitulating to the woke mob, saying, oh, we're protecting the interests of our values and the oppressed people. You are not. You are taking away their jobs, just like SodaStream. Ben & Jerry's, you should be ashamed of yourself for your hypocrisy.
Well, these sentiments are not limited to the average citizens. From politicians to businessmen to religious figures, they all seem to be upset with this company. And this includes the CEO of the company's Israel licensee. His name is Avi Zinger, and he has this to say.
I refuse it. Number one, legally in Israel, you cannot stop selling or decide not to sell to a customer. It doesn't matter if the customer is in Tel Aviv or in Haifa. So legally I cannot do it. And as an Israeli, and as a manufacturer and company that lives here, there's no way I can say no to Israeli citizens. So when they realized that there's no way that I will stop it, they decided not to renew my contract.
The Prime Minister of Israel has spoken too. Naftali Bennett has said, and I'm quoting again, there are many ice cream brands, but only one Jewish state. Ben & Jerry's has decided to brand itself as the anti-Israel ice cream. The decision is morally wrong, and I believe that it will become clear that it is also commercially wrong we will not be silent. They clearly aren't. Ben & Jerry's is currently owned by the Unilever Group. The Israeli government has warned Unilever. The decision of its subsidiary will have severe consequences, perhaps for Unilever too. That's what they've been told. Now, the parent company, Unilever, has been quick to distance itself from the decision. On your screen is a statement from the company, from Unilever, and this is what it says, that Unilever remains fully committed to maintaining its presence in Israel, and the decision by Ben & Jerry's has been made independently. They want nothing to do with it, which basically means that the ice cream maker, Ben & Jerry's, will have to deal with consequences on its own. What sort of consequences are we talking about? In one word, serious. Israel plans to use its clout in US politics to push for laws to punish Ben & Jerry's for siding with anti-Israel groups. Is that even possible? Israel's foreign minister thinks it is, and he said this on record.
Ben & Jerry's decision is a disgraceful capitulation to anti-Semitism, to the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement against Israel, and to all that is evil in the anti-Israeli and anti-Jewish discourse. We won't be silent. Over 30 states in the United States have passed anti-BDS legislation in recent years. I plan on asking each of them to enforce these laws against Ben & Jerry's so that they will never treat us in such a way.
So this is what we have, a global brand under the umbrella of a global conglomerate taking sides in a decades-old conflict. Call it pressure or corporate activism. The fact is that Ben & Jerry's has been doing it for decades. It has spoken for everything from climate change to same-sex marriage to Black Lives Matter, which is fine. It's good to take up a cause. But picking a side under pressure and branding it as value-based is in poor taste. Plus, with a conflict riddled with so many lies and contradictions, so much hatred and animosity, it's better to promote dialogue than to proliferate the differences by picking a side. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.